Bueno, buenos días a todos. Arrancamos con la segunda jornada de este congreso maravilloso que es Host. Hoy vamos a ver cómo profesionales de nuestro sector, que están todos aquí sentados ya preparados, nos van a contar un poco cómo están viviendo ellos todo el tema que está relacionado con las personas. Vamos a tener la suerte de tener ponentes que tienen una larga experiencia en las diferentes salas de los restaurantes, pues con más recorrido en el territorio nacional. Incluso tenemos algunos ponentes que vienen internacionales. Hablaremos sobre liderazgo sostenible, tendremos mesas redondas, 3 mesas redondas con grupos de restauración organizada, ¿no? Que yo creo que nos van a aportar esa parte, ¿no? De profesionalización, de cómo ellos hacen, ¿no? Con esos procesos más estandarizados. Tendremos otra mesa redonda fantástica con diferentes personas que tienen restaurantes con estrella Michelin, y luego tendremos una muy especial también, repleta de jóvenes que están en el presente y en el futuro de la sala, ¿no? Entonces, yo creo que va a ser una mañana y un día muy bonito. Además, vamos a ver también temas de vinos, un poquito de coctelería y todo esto se verá interrumpido con un pequeño descanso, un brunch que vamos a tener. Lo hemos pensado así porque sabemos que muchos de vosotros luego tenéis que estar en el servicio de la noche, entonces para que todos lleguéis a tiempo a vuestras casas, pues así lo haremos. Bien, yo quería empezar dando un dato, y es que el 66% de las empresas asegura estar ya formando a sus empleados en lo que son las conocidas como habilidades blandas. Es un 71% en el caso de las grandes compañías. Hoy en día las empresas, además de aptitudes profesionales, ¿no? de los conocimientos, del saber hacer y de la experiencia de los candidatos que escogen para trabajar en sus empresas, también valoran su personalidad y sobre todo la actitud frente al trabajo. Estas habilidades tienen que ver con las habilidades sociales, las habilidades relacionales, que son necesarias para interactuar con los demás. Ayer vimos la importancia, ¿no? del trabajo en equipo, tuvimos charlas súper interesantes, ¿no? sobre la capacidad de resolver conflictos, ¿no? y situaciones complicadas. Yo creo que todas estas habilidades que tienen que ver también con la comunicación de forma positiva, de forma eficaz, incluso con la proactividad y la empatía, pues hoy en día son fundamentales, ¿no? Desde Basque Culinary Center incluso nosotros también lo fomentamos y lo evaluamos, ¿no? a nuestros alumnos. Entonces, vimos ayer su importancia y yo creo que además esto tiene que ver mucho con la sala y lo pudimos ver ayer. También vimos cómo el liderazgo tiene mucho que ver con todo esto y claro, cuando hablamos de la sala y tenemos en cuenta que los servicios, ¿no? están dados por personas, para personas todavía más. Para crear equipos comprometidos, vimos ayer, es necesario cuidar. Y cuidar significa primero escuchar. Hoy, gracias a profesionales de nuestro sector, vamos a ver cómo podemos empezar a construir una sala de personas, un modelo más sostenible. Así que yo os hago una pregunta. ¿Os imagináis una sala sin personas? A mí me cuesta imaginarlo, así que con esta reflexión arrancamos el segundo día de Host. Gracias.
Can you hear me? Yes? I'm going to leave it right here, right? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Hello, my name is Trine Hahnemann, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my best practice in leadership and why this is so important, and why I think that probably the rest of my career I'm going to dedicate a lot of time to this, because I really think we need a change now, and we need it faster than ever, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about that. I've been a chef for 25 years. I've had my own company for 25 years. And for the last 23 years, I've had a company that run canteens and restaurants inside other companies. And I sold this company 4 weeks ago. And I've been employing 100 people and cooked about 3,000 meals from scratch, most of it organic and local. So I really worked with producing food, and I worked in the kitchen, and I set up hospitality. So I've been all the way around. But the thing that I worked for, and when you see what is writing up there, this is my frame. This is how I see it. it's a democratic meal. A democratic meal, I mean, what does that mean? It means a meal that includes everybody and everything, you can say. And it has to be inclusive, and it has to look after the guest, but it also has to look after the people who work to serve the guest. And that's a very important paradox to remember all the time. If you want to serve a meal with love, there needs to be love in the kitchen as well. And that sounds really banal when you say it like that, but I really, truly mean it. If your staff is not doing well, if they're not functioning, if they don't have good conditions, have a salary they can live on, how are they going to provide something beautiful as food for the people who sit on the other side of the wall? So this is the little rabbit. You can think of me. I'm sitting there, and I see the world through food. I worked for food. I'm a chef. I love food. I can eat all the time, and I love having dinner with other people. I love cooking for other people. I love the response. I love all of that. But also, if you talk about sustainability, food plays such an important role in solving all these things. And when I'm sitting there looking at nature, we talk a lot about that. The carrot has to come from a farm. It has to be clean. It has to be grown in a certain way, and so on and on and on. And we've been talking about this for the last 20 years. We have a really, best practice in the restaurant and the way we source and so on and on. But maybe we forgot the staff. How can you run and say you have a sustainable restaurant if it's not a sustainable policy for how you treat your staff? Then it's not a sustainable project. You need to start with the people. So that's what I have done. So that's a big why. And when I say why do we need this, if we look at it from a business perspective, and I'm actually going to go to this right away, this is not working anymore. This is prolonging the past. This chef Gordon Ramsay screaming at young people, this whole culture just needs to go. We don't need to talk so much about why it happened. It is over. That's just my comment to it. We need inclusive, recognizable leadership where the person who are cooking in that room is recognized for the person that person is, for his talent, her talent, for which kind of personality she is. How do you get the utmost best out of that person? By knowing that person, by understanding what kind of employment do you have. And why do we need to do that? Because otherwise we're going to go out of business. We are the fastest growing global business in the world, in the Western world. We have, if you look in Denmark and in Copenhagen, the hospitality industry is providing the most jobs and the most revenue right now. It's growing like crazy, and we have no staff. What are we going to do? How are we going to meet this if we have no staff? How are we going to serve people? How are we going to make the beds? Who's going to be in the reception? Who's going to be in the restaurant serving the tables? So if we don't tempt young people to come and work for us, we don't have a future, and therefore we have no business. So that's that case, but then there's also just the human side, what is okay. So when I started working with this many years ago, actually, it's 17 years ago. When I stepped into the kitchen, I didn't want anybody to call me chef. My name is Trine. And I didn't react when I went out and cooked. And people say, well, how do you want it, chef? And they had to say it 3 times because I was like, chef. It didn't feel right to me. And then working in this environment, coming from actually, I didn't train the normal way. I came from university and decided I wanted to be a cook because I loved it so much and I couldn't really see myself an academic. But at the same time, I thought this culture is not working. I can't make the people understand that they can scream as soon as I go out of the kitchen, then they behave when I'm in there. And then I was really looking at it, thinking there must be some place, some vision that I can tuck into. I don't have to invent the world myself again. And actually, the human rights are amazing. They're written after the Second World War, and they tell us how we need to behave towards each other in all kinds of ways in life, but especially we can use that. And if you read this, it makes sense how, if we look at that and say, how do we create teamwork with that kind of respect? Because that's what a kitchen is. Okay, a kitchen is about people, and it's about teamwork. I know this celebrity culture that we have now has been amazing for the industry. It's made our industry global, which is a really good thing. People can travel around the world and work wherever they want if they're part of this industry. But at the same time, it's also giving us challenge when it comes to labor laws, how do we treat people in the different countries, and so on and on and on. But this is about people, and I think one of the big challenges we have to look at as leader is first think about what is it that we are leading. We have a room. First, there's a dining room and there's a kitchen. And in these rooms, people, they meet in every day, and they have to spend between 8 to 16 hours with a group of people they have not chosen to be with, other than they've chosen to get a job. They did not choose necessarily the 4 others they were going to work with. The leader did. And they have nowhere to hide. They don't have a desk where they can relax a little and put a paper to the other side and think about, I'll do that tomorrow. No, there's a deadline and a new deadline and a new deadline, and they have to perform all the time. It's very, very difficult to have a bad day in the hospitality industry. So how do you make sure that that can happen? First of all, you have to put a team that works together. You need to think of the people you put in that team. One has to be social and make sure that everybody is greeted in the morning, get a coffee, that asked how was your day, all of that. You have somebody who can be disciplined, who can make sure you make it on time. You have somebody who probably has to have the very gastronomic talent but doesn't necessarily have the leadership talent, who can focus that the produce and the dishes are going to be the right way. And so on and on and on, depending on how big your team are. The recruitment and the ideas of how you put this together is really, really important to get an atmosphere of recognition, love every day that you are together about it, and also the cooking. The act of cooking is a very, you can say, a communal one. It's something we've done all through history. It's something we've done together, and it's something that has a lot of nourishment in it, and a lot of other factors that we can bring into the workspace and make it, I would say, if we do this right, we can make it one of the best places to work in the world, I would say, because it has so many factors that we actually would like to have in our lives. So, first step, timing. Good, I hadn't seen the clock. First step that I did was I looked at the charter and I thought, how can I do this? So the first thing I did was I invented a game about democracy and a restaurant. And then I invited all my staff to a team building day, and of course I had somebody helping me creating this game, where we a whole day played a game about where we used different words. And I said to everybody on my team at that time, just try to forget about the hierarchy. Forget about everything you've known before. We are going to spend this day together and we're going to create something new, and we're going to see who has the talents for all these different things, because I don't know. Because this is also one of the big problems, not in big hotel chains and anything, but in restaurants in general, the way we recruit people. You come into the kitchen or the restaurant, you look people, oh yeah, you look nice, can you speak English, can you cook, yeah, can you put an apron on, can you be here tomorrow 8 o'clock, great, you're hired. If I could think a lot about a company, if they did their recruitment like that, they wouldn't have this success. So this is also a very big part of it. So we had the courage to kind of enable trains, and I gave up some of my power, which is what it is to be a leader. You have power. You have power to structure things. You have power to decide you're fired, you're hired. You have power to make it a good day or a bad day. You have the power to give people the salary. Small, you have it. This is yours. And are you willing to give that up and share it so the team can grow with you? That is also a very important point. Then walk the talk. Don't promise anything you're not ready to give. So think about it carefully before you do it. Create a vision, create step by step, or tell people we're going to try this out for 3 months, and if it's not working, whatever it is you come up with. Because I also think it's very important to say there's not one solution, because you are a person and your personality as a leader will be different from mine. I have my weaknesses and I'm very open about my weaknesses. I'm very good at bringing people along on a creative process. I'm very good at sharing that. I'm not good at admin. I forget that you need a contract. And I don't think it's important because we had this promise that we were going to go in and cook, and of course I'm going to pay you. But of course for that person, that contract is so important because this is the proof that I have a job. So I'm honest about, don't keep asking me for it. Ask this person over here because she's very good at that. So I also think whatever leader you are, you have to look at yourself and see what kind of people do I need around me to be successful, and how can I share that power? Education is very, very important. And we don't really have any leadership education for chefs in general. There's very few I know in hospitality and front of house. There's much more business degrees that you can have in hotel schools. But think about how many Michelin star chefs who become leaders of a kitchen of 25, 50 people at an age of 27 and never had a leadership course, knowing nothing about leadership, and they have to perform and make sure that it gets to 2 stars. That person is going to be so scared. So of course, if they don't have any skills and no education, this is the only way they can go about it. Shout, don't show your fear, don't share it, just be very strict and go to that. Of course, I'm also, I think hospitality or schools like Basque Culinary need a master degree in leadership. I think schools could think about it. If you were a chef for 4 or 5 years, you've been a sous chef, you can be a chef, you're a maitre d', the second in line, and you're going to move on. If your employer could send you to a master degree that wasn't necessarily full-time, but 2 nights a week, that you could go for a year and then get the degree, and then you would have some skills, it will be good for everybody. The thing is to keep people, which is very, very important, because recruitment, first of all, costs money, even though we are not very good at it in this industry. And the other big thing is keeping people. Losing people every year and have to start all over is also very costly. So some investment in this will come back if you can maintain a team for a long time. And then one of the things that I did was I created some ethical guidelines, and I think every restaurant should do that. Not only a food manifesto about how you're going to source, how you're going to be sustainable, but ethical guidelines about how are we treating each other at this place. And now I have to hurry up. So I think for the future, we need to create a conversation about what new leadership should be. And I think apart from all the guidelines, if you go a little deeper into the guidelines, these are some of the things that I have defined. Balance the power of words, and I really mean that. Once a year, I did a workshop with all my head chefs and front of house, and the first work we do together is to discuss the meaning of words. And it seems very banal, but if you think about when I say tolerance, what do I mean when I say tolerance? All these words that we use all the time, and also the more words that we use when we are in the kitchen, when we shout at people or when we give guidelines, what do we mean when we say them? How do we know that we are speaking the same language? And I found out in the beginning that people when I said something to you, they thought it meant something completely different. So for a team to know what does the words actually mean, you can say you move on to get rid of a lot of misunderstanding. Respect. We worked a lot about how do we respect everybody on the team. How do we make sure that we know in the morning how good a form is the team in? Can we ask each other? Is it okay to ask each other? You seem a little sad. Did you have a fight with your husband before you leave? Or were the children really crying? Or what happened? Is that okay? Is that respectful? Can you do that in a respectful way so you always know where is the team today? Because we are going to work in the same room for the next 16 hours. These things can be important. Inclusiveness, communication, that is also, everybody knows their role, everybody knows why they're there. We've talked about out loud what they're good at, not what they're not so good at. And then communication, which is really, really important, to say things in a direct way that doesn't go after the person, but talks about what we are doing. I'm not satisfied with this dish. Why am I not satisfied with this? I think it lacks vinegar and a little bit of more salt, and actually you did it really well yesterday. And instead of saying, why are you such an idiot that you can't do it again today, you talk about what is it that, were you busy, you couldn't remember it, what happened, you could talk about it and other things, or you can just talk about the dish. how do we remember that this should be like this, setting the table and so on. So make sure people to people that is not only the leader to the person working in the kitchen, it's a team. These rules goes for everybody also in between each other. You should be courageous enough to break down the hierarchy and make sure that everybody in the team is included in this, because that will make everybody stronger. And now I have a little bit more time, sorry. Rights. Rights is also a difficult thing, because when we talk about the Western world, we have rights, and we have other different perspectives when it comes to that. But I think you shouldn't be afraid of having this conversation about what is workers' rights. A lot of people see the union as an enemy. I have worked with the union all my life, and I don't see them as an enemy. I think sometimes they're really stupid, but that's, of course, they think the same of me because we have different interests. But in Denmark, we have a flexicurity system. So we actually work together to try to evolve and also discuss all the problems that we have in a kind of open way. And I think we are pretty successful in that. Of course, the thing is you give up some power when you have a union contract. But on the other hand, you have a lot of battles all through the time I've been part of it. And I win some and I lose some. And I will say it evens out in a way. I think we have to also talk about money, of course, because salaries are way too low, and it's a really big economic problem, people always say, to rise the wages, because where the money is going to come from. It's a model we have to look at, because if I go to the next one and say, we all have a right to a good life. And a good life is also a life where you have a job, where you make a living, you can live off. That means it has to be at a certain standard. And I don't think we will ever have really high salaries, and I don't think we need to, but I think it's very important that we focus in our industry when we talk about sustainable leadership, not to create what we call working poor. It's really important that people not everybody can be a head chef. Some will be line cooks all their life because they're so good at it, and some will be waiters all their lives because don't have leadership skills where they are the best people with the guests. So therefore, these people need a career as well. They need to be able to grow with this job and stay in it and be able to provide for their family for a whole life, because otherwise we lose them. And it's amazing to run these businesses and have that diversity in age as well, because the experienced people also bring something to our business, which I think is very important. So all in all, I think it's really, really important, but also an amazing journey to go on. I have had the pleasure of working with in my company that I just sold for 23 years. I had it, and when I sold it, there was a lot of hugging and a lot of crying, because 70% of my team has been there for more than 15 years. The rest had been there between 5 and 10 years. So this is my family, and of course. How do you sell your family? That's very, very important, very, very difficult. But it was also an enormous joy, because I merged with another company that will give a lot of opportunities to them. But at the same time, it is amazing to think about that I've been on this journey with all these amazing, very, very talented people who helped build this business. And I think the most important part is to have the courage and the will, but also I will say, if this industry is going to flourish and also grow in the way it is growing right now, we really need to do this to attract young people and to convince them that this is an amazing place with a lot of opportunities to work at. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah, questions, yeah.
So thank you so much, Trine, for inspiring us. Yo creo que Trine acaba de plantar una semilla en nosotros. it's so important that you speak about that, because I think that it's a necessity in our sector. So thank you so much, really. So my question is about young people, because you talk about that. So do you think that with this sustainable model, we are going to be able to attract more young people to the sector?
Yes. First of all, we have to think about two things. We've had, for the last 20, 30 years, all the young people have been told that they need to take a long education and be more educated than their parents. But right now, it is very difficult to be more educated than your professor, father or mother, you know. People have to, in the future, to look for other things to do, because we can't all go that way. And so I think we have, because it is, if we get the leadership part right, this is a very fun place to work. Don't forget that. Cooking, first of all, it's never boring. You go in, and before you turn around, the day is over, and you can see every day. If you're that type of person, you can see every day your result. There's a result every day. There's satisfaction every day. There is people who can tell you that this was really done very well, and you can evolve every day. So the opportunities in our industries are amazing. So of course, they would love it if they don't get shouted at and we stop the Gordon Ramsay show. I actually think we should stop that right now. So you don't see that side, and then evolve into what a beautiful thing it could be.
And it's the same with the waiters and customer service in restaurants, isn't it?
Yeah, I still have a part of my business. It's a food space and a bakery where we do parties and education and lots of cooking courses. And we have a bakery, which is also a cafe. And I have a woman working with me from Singapore. Her name is Ivy. She was a oil bunk trader. Do you know how much money they make? I mean, and she thought it was so boring to sit in that office, in that cubicle, never talking to anybody. So she applied to a job because she used to work at Starbucks. And she's been with me for 2 years, and I think she took she gets a quarter of the salary now, and she loves it because she loves speaking to people, she loves meetings, she loves the regulars that come in every morning, she knows exactly what coffee they're having, and which bag with which bun goes with what. And I'm like, I look at her all the time thinking, when is she going to leave? When is she going to leave? Because of her other career. And she's like, I'm going nowhere because I love this job. And for me to have this interaction with other people every day is what I want to do. So there is we have to think that there's so many different people on this planet. We are not all the same, and we have different talents, and a lot of us love to work with other people and talk to customers and be like that. So I think it's a lot about making sure we tell the young people, there is opportunity for here. I see you as the person you are, and I'm going to find a way to fit you in so I can make you grow and make your job fun and satisfactory, Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.